Everyone, my name is Rajni Jha. Welcome to Drishti IAS. So today we are going to start the new chapter of class 10th polity, which is outcomes of democracy. Whatever we have studied so far is what we are going to study in this chapter as well. So this chapter is going to be very easy for you if you have listened to me carefully about all the topics that I have already discussed so far. So before I start, can you confirm if I'm audible and visible to all of you? Could somebody confirm if I'm audible and visible? Yes. Yes. Good evening, Ashish, Ananya, Prabhanu, A. Bansal. Am I audible and visible to all of you? This chapter is going to be very easy and we'll try to cover this chapter completely in this session itself. We will not have another part of it because anyway it is very easy and we have discussed all these points. Yes. And soon we are going to start with geography as well, because for geography, the prescribed books are NCERTs from 6th to 12th class. So we'll start with geography NCERTs as well. Yes, good evening, Sanjay. Okay, all right, I am audible. Great. So we'll start with this chapter now, because in the last session I gave you one mains answer writing practice question and you haven't answered. There was only one student who has answered that, and the rest of you haven't answered. I'm not going to discuss it. See, there is no point in making an effort and bringing mains answer writing practice questions for you if you're not going to write. I'm not asking you to write the model answer, but at least the framework. You should be writing the framework at least, right? This is what I was talking about. Initially, everybody is extremely enthusiastic and motivated to start the preparation, but in the process itself, they just adopt a laid-back approach where they stop practicing questions. And it is important to understand concepts, but at the same time it is equally important to practice questions, both prelims and mains questions. Yes, good evening. Yes, there was only one student who had answered, and because most of you did not answer, I'm not discussing that here now. Once all of you answer, then I'll discuss, because I could see there was only one answer. All right, so welcome to the session. For those of you who are new in this session, let me tell you, we have these live classes every day at 6 p.m. sharp from Monday to Friday, where we discuss new NCERTs, and up until now we have discussed all the chapters of class 9th polity, and we started class 10th polity, and right now we are at the last chapter of class 10th polity, NCERT, new NCERT. Okay, let's continue. All right, let us continue. Yes, you should be writing the answers, otherwise there is no point bringing the questions, right? So first, this chapter itself talks about the outcomes of democracy. Up until now, we have talked about democracy. What is democracy? Why is there a need of democracy? What is the power sharing concept of democracy? And why is there a need for power sharing? We studied all of this, right? Now, this chapter specifically talks about when there is democracy in a country, what are the outcomes? What are the outcomes expected, and what are the real outcomes that can be seen in a country? That we will discuss in today's session. Okay, so first, the question is, how do you assess, how do you evaluate or examine a country's outcome in terms of democracy? How do you examine if the democracy has given the outcome or not? How do you do that? Yes, hello Vivek. All right, let's focus on this. Democracy basically talks about equality among citizens. So you see that in society, is there equality? Is everybody getting fair chance, fair opportunity at education, jobs, etc., to just grow in life, to progress in life, to lead a life with dignity? Does everybody have that chance, that fair chance and opportunity? Then it also, in a democracy, when you see a country has democracy, democracy makes you a part of the decision making. So are citizens a part of decision making or not? And if there is a conflict, how those conflicts are resolved? Is the government listening to people? And of course, no government is perfect, but if there are mistakes, is there a room for correction? Because of all of these things, once you check these things, you can determine whether the democracy in a country is working or not, whether it is successful or not. Yes, very good. Promoting social justice, great. Free legal aid. Yeah, these are the fundamental rights that you're talking about. But of course, in terms of fundamental rights also, we have them, but how true are they when it comes to their applicability, right? How applicable they are in actual life, in the real scenario. That is also important. Protecting rights, development, growth, GDP, health, education, very good. Yes. So how do you evaluate a democracy's outcome? Democracy usually is considered superior to any other form of government because it promotes equality among citizens. Then it enhances dignity of the individual because it has right to life with dignity, right? We've just talked about it. Improves quality of decision making. Why does it improve the quality of decision making? We have discussed this because in a democracy, there is no one person who's taking all the decisions, who's making the decisions. There are debates and discussions that go on. Because of debates and discussions, the process might be a little slower, but there will not be any arbitrary decisions because there are a lot of people involved in the decision making. So it leads to better quality of decision making. It provides methods to resolve conflicts, right? Because if you, in a democracy, we know that if the government is not performing well, there are elections held every 5 years, general elections where you can vote that particular government out, right? Or you can, if your fundamental rights are being violated, you can approach Supreme Court, right? Supreme Court can issue writs, even high courts can issue writs. So there are chances of removing, there are methods of resolving conflicts, and if there is mistake, if there are mistakes in the governing of the country, there is always room for correction when it comes to democracy, because otherwise in authoritarian government, what would happen? The government will keep making the same mistake over and over again. We have already studied all these points earlier. Right? In authoritarian government, the government will keep making same mistakes over and over, and because citizens are not allowed to criticize the government, citizens are not allowed to raise voice, give their opinion, they would never know what mistakes they are making and the mistakes will continue. But in democracy, it does not happen like that, right? If there are mistakes that are being made again and again, then citizens can raise their voice, they can just give their opinion out loud in form of various methods which are already given in our constitution. So there is a room for correction of mistakes. We have discussed all these earlier as well. Right. SDG goals. Okay. Next is, okay, in democracy, the most basic thing in democracy, basic expectation in democracy is accountability. We know that the government has to be accountable to people in a democracy. The government is responsive and there has to be legitimate government. What is the meaning of all of this? When you talk about accountability, what does that mean? Whatever policies or laws they are making, they also have to answer whatever they are doing and why they are doing so, and if it is not working, then how can they change it? So they are always accountable to citizens. They are always responsive to people's needs. They should be. It's a different matter whether they are always responsive or not, but they should be because democracy says so. So if there are some needs and aspirations of society and citizens and people in society in general, in that case, the government should be responsive to those needs and aspirations or expectations. It also allows people to elect their representatives. So the person who's going to form the government or the government in power will be elected by people themselves. This is a part of democracy, right? Then it gives citizens control over rules the same way, because if the government is not working, the government can be voted out. And it enables citizen participation in the decision making. How? Especially in India, we have indirect democracy. So we choose or we elect our representatives, and those representatives make decisions on our behalf. So we are a part of decision making. And in any case, those representatives, if their decisions are not right, then we have right to express ourselves, speak freely, express ourselves through speech and expression, right? We can also hold peaceful protests without arms. So all these rights have been given to us to make sure that we participate in the decision making, whether indirectly or here directly through expressing our opinions, right? Yes, good evening. One nation, one election is also coming, no general election. Well, unless it becomes a reality, there's no point talking about it, right? We will talk about it maybe later, not in this chapter. Okay. Next topic is democracy and efficiency. See, critics generally argue that democracy is a slow process. The decision making in democracy is a slow process, and it is because there are a lot of debates and discussions that happen during parliamentary sessions, and because there are a lot of people involved in the debates and discussions, the decision making can be slow. But at the same time, just because decision making is slow does not mean it is not effective. It is effective because there will be no arbitrary decisions. If there is only one person making all the decision, decisions, or if there are only a handful of people making all the decisions, then they can come up with anything that they want, right? But if there are a lot of people involved in the discussion and debates, and there is a lot of discussion and debate that goes on, in those cases, the decision making can be slow, but it will not be arbitrary at least, so it will be more effective. In dictatorship, on the other hand, decision making is fast because there are only one or two people or few people involved in the decision making, but those decisions can be arbitrary, those can be against people's wills, they generally are not accepted by people, right? Okay, democratic governments, they take time because they follow procedures. Democratic procedure. All right. Well, solitary strategist, we have the right, we have that fundamental right, and it should be. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, next is transparency. Now see, transparency, what does that mean? That whatever decisions you're making as a government, as my representative, I should know what you're doing, what kind of policies you're bringing, right? So transparency means that in democracy especially, decisions taken by the representatives or people who we have chosen, they make decisions according to first constitution, the rules, norms and procedures, right? And every individual, every citizen has the right to know what kind of decisions are being taken. Then they can simply be a part of this whole process also, because they know what kind of decisions are being taken, because they have the right to know that, right to information, and they can also examine whether these decisions are right for them or not, and this is called transparency, right? Transparent is whenever something is transparent, you can see on both the sides of that thing, right? So here also, whatever decision is happening on the other side, I can see it clearly, and that is why it is transparent. So transparency in democracy ensures that whatever decisions are being taken, are being made, they are done according to the constitution, the rules, the norms, and at the same time, citizens also have the right to know what decisions are being taken or being made. Okay. Right, exactly. We also discussed this, right? Absolutely, Prabhanu, that in democracy, the process can be slow because there are a lot of people involved in the debates and discussions, but at least it will not be arbitrary. Great. Abhinav, I actually don't know. That's probably because I use the language quite a lot. It is about any language that you want to be fluent in, you just have to use it. And there can be various ways to use it. You have to work on all the skills. So it has to be reading, writing, speaking. So you have to work on all of them, and listening. So the more you use a language, the better you get at it. That's the only example I can give you. That's the only process of learning a language. All right. Next is, we have talked about transparency. What are the indicators of accountable government? When we say that the government has to be accountable, what does that mean? See, first and foremost in accountability is there should be general, free and fair elections. Why? Because let's say the elections are not free and fair, then the government knows that maybe the next elections they can push. So the elections will not happen at regular intervals. So what they can do whatever they want, because they will be able to escape from election process. But if we talk about accountability, that means elections should be happening free and fair and regularly, so that if the government is not working well, the citizens can remove them, and there has to be accountability in this process, right? Next is open public debate on major policies and laws. Again, people should be able to express their opinion about the major policies, major laws. Like you can see, we usually, as citizens, we usually express our opinion on things that are maybe not that great, or if they are things that are happening which are unjust in society, we always express our opinions on that. So there should be a debate, public debate, where major policies and laws should be discussed, and this ensures accountability. Next is citizens' right to information. As I told you, whatever government is functioning, we should know what the government is doing. Then only we can be responsible for holding them accountable. Otherwise, we will not know what was happening. We will not know what policies they are working on. So how would we hold them accountable? How would we question them? Right? So first is regular, free and fair elections for accountability. Second is there should be open debate or discussions, and citizens should have the right to information about government's functioning. Now this is what should be there, right? Now the question is, what exactly is the actual performance? Now for free and fair elections, we know, okay, for free and fair elections, we know that this is happening, right? Elections are happening regularly. So in this department, we have succeeded. What about others? Have we created conditions for public debates? We have, to some extent. But where do we fail? We fail at creating fair opportunity for everyone. I just told you that in a democracy, there should be fair chances, fair opportunity for everyone to succeed, for everyone to get employment, education, right? For everyone to grow in life. But we have failed at that point, at least if we talk about India. Then is every decision being discussed and debated upon by everyone? No, that is also not happening. So that's one area there we have to improve. And do we as citizens have sufficient information about everything? No, we don't. So we should be having right to information, but do we have sufficient information about the workings of the government? We don't. So first is something that we have achieved. There are regular, free and fair elections, but open public debate for every matter, that is not happening. We do not have fair opportunities or chances for everyone to succeed in life. So for everyone to get employment, education, and to grow in life, to live a life with dignity. And the right to information, it should be there because it is important for a democracy. It is important for holding the government accountable, but we do not have it sufficiently. So these are the areas where we are still lacking. Okay. That is true, Madhu. I will not deny that. Okay. Next is, all right, before we move ahead to economic growth and development, if I ask you about the legitimacy of democratic government, in democracy, how do you ensure legitimacy? Like we saw accountability, right? How would you ensure legitimacy? How would you ensure legitimacy of the government in democracy or democratic government? See, we know that legitimate means when something is happening according to the law, according to the constitution. So in democracy, legitimacy is always there. That is why the process can be slow, because we are following constitution, because we are following proper procedure. So it can be slow, but it ensures that the government in power is people's own government. At least that's what we feel, right? Because we have elected them, so we feel responsible. We feel that we are a part of the decision making, and this process may be slow because elections take time, and but it may be slow, but we are following the laws, we are following procedures, and then the government comes in power, which we have elected. So we feel like these are people's own government, and that provides legitimacy to democratic government. Transparency, respect for citizens, yes. Great, definitely. The next is you, Madhu, you are right, ma'am. Yes, Ananya is also right. You have said the same thing, that democratic government is legitimate because it is people's own chosen government. We have chosen them, so it is legitimate, right? Next comes economic growth and development. Just because there is democracy somewhere, do you think that ensures economic growth and development? See, people often expect that wherever democracy is there, that will lead to economic development. They simply assume that. But we have evidence. We have evidence from 1950 to 2000 where it has been seen that dictatorship had a slightly higher economic growth rate than democracies. Why would that be the case? Probably because they can take decisions, they can make decisions faster, right? And a country's success is not just about economic development, it is also about how the people of that country are being treated, right? If there is social justice or not. Because India focuses on other things also, in democracy you focus on these things also, then economic development can be slightly slower than as compared to dictatorship. However, there's a very important nuance here. When we talk about poor countries, in poor countries, whether there is dictatorship or there is democracy, they both are functioning on similar levels. They both lack economic development in poor countries. Yes. So economic development depends on many factors. For example, population size, global condition, international cooperation, and economic priorities. But in general, a trend has been seen that in the dictatorships, the economic development is slightly better than democracies. and we also have evidence for it. As you can see in this chart, it is given in your book only. All democratic regimes, they have 3.95% growth rate. All dictatorial regimes, they have 4.42%. So it is slightly better than democracy. But when we talk about poor countries, whether they are under dictatorship or they are under democracy, they are almost equal, 4.34% and 4.28%. There is not much difference. So economic growth depends on a lot of factors. We cannot say just because of the type of the government, right? Next, okay, one of the major expectations from a democracy is social justice, that people will be taken care of. Especially in India, we talk about welfare society. So we should be focusing on reducing inequality and poverty. So this is one of the major expectations in a democracy, reducing poverty and inequalities and ensuring fair distribution of wealth and opportunities. What is the reality? The reality is, in any country for that matter, even in democracies, there are just a handful of people which are ultra rich. So there is a small group of ultra rich who control the disproportionate share of wealth. I'll just show you the chart also. And their share of national income continues to increase. Poor people possess very little. Many struggle for even food, the very basic things, food, shelter, clothing, housing, education, healthcare, etc. Democracies in this regard, in reducing inequality and reducing poverty, has not been very successful. If you really look at the evidence, especially see in South Africa, top 20% share is with the top 20% people have 64.8% of wealth, and bottom 20% only have 2.9%, right? And if we look at, say, USA, we say it's such a developed nation. So here also 50% is with top 20%, and there are only 4% for the bottom 20%. So you can see in every country for that matter, there are some handful of people at the top that hold major chunk of the wealth, and the bottom 20% have negligible amount. They even struggle with very basic necessities like food, shelter, clothing, education, and medical services. Next is accommodation for social diversity. See, when we talk about democracy, I told you it is about everyone's welfare, right? So in democracy, social diversity can be easily and efficiently adopted and accommodated. Let me see if you have any questions till then. Okay, politicians are funded by extra rich citizens. All right, we will refrain from making political statements here. What about India's inequality? It is the same condition, beta. That's what I said. This is a general trend that in any country for that matter, the top handful of people have majority share of the wealth, and the bottom 20%, 30% people, they struggle with even the basic necessities of life, right? This chart was given in your book, so I included it. Okay, see, democracy, one of the expectations of democracy is to create a society where everybody can live peacefully, right? There can be social diversity, a peaceful, harmonious society, and it can accommodate social division, it can accommodate diversity without creating any chances of violence. Even if violence is created, it can be solved peacefully, it can be managed peacefully, and that is the basic idea of democracy, right? So if we talk about conflict, there is no society in the world where there are no conflicts whatsoever. When people from different walks of life, they live together, they're bound to be conflicts. But in democracy, the basic idea of democracy is we should be respecting each other's differences, viewpoints. We should have mechanism for negotiation. So you can have a different viewpoint, I can have a different viewpoint, and we can debate about it, but we still can live peacefully together. That is the basic idea of democracy. Even if there are conflicts, then it can be resolved peacefully. That is the idea of democracy. So democracy, the basic idea is whatever social diversity we have, we can all live harmoniously and peacefully in a society. So what can be the conditions for this? First is there should not be majority rule, right? It should not be like there is only majority rule every time, because if it is so, then the minorities will always feel like they are being left behind, or they do not have power. And we have studied earlier also that power sharing is the basis of a democracy. Everybody should feel like they have power. But if every time the majority starts ruling, then what about minorities and their interests, right? So first is, it should not be simply majority rule. And second, majority rule must not become ruled by a majority community. What does that mean? That the same thing that I just told you, that majority rule does not mean whichever religion or caste or community is in majority number, that only rules every time. Everybody should get chance and opportunity to get into the powerful positions. That is the idea here, and that's how we can ensure that diversity is equally respected and we can live peacefully. If everybody feels like they have the power to participate in democracy, they are equal citizens, then even though we have differences, we will be able to live together peacefully. But if certain people start feeling like only a group of people or a handful of people have all the power and we will never come into power, then they will start feeling neglected, and that creates, that in those cases the difference creates conflicts, and that can become violent very easily. This is also something we have studied earlier, I think in the 9th standard book. Madhu, can you repeat your question? You just asked why not authoritarian rule, ma'am. Are you saying why are we not going for it in India? Can you rephrase it? I did not quite understand. Yes. Okay, so we will talk about that. Don't worry. In political science, in 11th standard, we have a bit all these things, all the concepts and in depth, and we will have these concepts as well. Right now, we will stick to NCERT. Because once I start explaining all these points, this class will be left and I will start explaining something else entirely. There will be peace and harmony in the world. Yes, okay. Madhu, your question is still not clear. All right, let's continue. Until then, please phrase your question. The moment I see your question, I'll answer it, okay? Next. In a democracy, dignity and freedom of citizens can be ensured. See, the basic idea is democracy is considered superior in some sense, and that some sense is that every individual, their dignity and freedom can be ensured. That cannot happen in authoritarian government, because in authoritarian government, you're not even allowed to criticize the government. You're not allowed to practice freedoms, right? The government decides everything. But in case of democracy, it's not like that. In democracy, you get freedom. You get fundamental rights, they cannot be taken away from you. Of course, there are few exceptions to this when there is emergency situation, but otherwise, if somebody violates your fundamental rights, you can always approach the Supreme Court, directly the apex court. So you can always approach the Supreme Court. So you have certain guarantees here in democracy, and these freedoms and these fundamental rights are important so that you can progress in life. And because in authoritarian government, you don't have these, you might be very restricted. You might have to stay within some bounds. There will not be complete development of an individual. That cannot happen unless the individual has some freedom. The freedom to think, the freedom to have opinion, the freedom to criticize the government, right? So I think, Madhu, that's what you were asking. This is one of the major differences why we prefer democracy. Now, democracy is considered superior to other forms of the government in promoting dignity and freedom. Respect and freedom are the basics, the basic foundation of democracy, and that is why it is considered better. Achha, what about dignity of women? Do we put a special emphasis on that in democracy? Yes, it's not just about women. Any part of the society, any community of the society, or any section of the society that has been historically disadvantaged or left behind, we specially make efforts for them. They are called affirmative actions. So it also focuses especially on the dignity of women and the section of people which were left behind. If we talk about women especially, we know that major societies in the world are patriarchal society, and patriarchal society sort of favors men in most of the aspects, and women usually are discriminated. So for them, democracy gives them legal moral strength to demand for equality. Okay. Social diversity, why not in dictatorship? You tell me. Forget social diversity. You don't even have basic rights there, fundamental rights at least, or the freedoms. It is completely dependent on the idea of whatever idea the government has or the person who's ruling has. Your entire life will revolve around it. Social diversity requires dignity of every individual, right? When the individual feels they are respected, they have dignity, they have freedom, everybody, even the minorities. When they feel like they have all these things, then they start expressing themselves. Then the other people also feel like they have to respect everyone. Otherwise, there are rules against it, right? But for that, the very basic need is freedom. Everybody needs some freedom to develop the personality, the freedom to express themselves, freedom to live a life with dignity, which anyway is missing in dictatorship, right? You might have some freedom, namesake freedom, but in actual practice, you are missing that. Even if the government takes away your freedom, you cannot approach the court in dictatorship. But in democracy, you can. And for social diversity to exist, and for everybody to respect everyone, to respect the dignity of every individual, freedoms are the very basic foundation. That is why. Okay. Next is, what about caste equality in India? Democracy, like I told you, it's not just for women, for any section of society that has been left behind or has been disadvantaged or has been discriminated against. We have made special arrangements for them. These are called affirmative actions, so that they can also get a level playing field. Once the level playing field is created, then we can talk about merit. Until then, we can't talk about merit. Okay, next. This is the last part of this chapter. Like I told you, everything that we have studied so far in the 9th standard and 10th standard, that's what is given here. If you have understood the basics of democracy, you can easily understand this chapter. I don't think I have told you anything new. We have already discussed all these things. The last part of this chapter is democracy is a continuous process. Now, like any form of government, this also makes mistakes, right? Democracy also makes mistakes, but there are chances for them to improve, because people can raise voices, people can express opinions, they have freedom of speech and expression. And if the government is making any mistake, people can raise voice, and then government has the chance to change it. If the government does not change that, then the government will be changed in the next elections, right? So democracy is a continuous process. We can judge it, sure. It faces new problems, new tests, as citizens and societies are constantly changing. And with changing societies, the government also need to adapt. Democracy also need to adapt. In fact, not just democracy, our constitution also needs to adapt, which is why we keep having amendments, right? So people express complaints, expectations, and then democracy. In democracy, the government makes changes accordingly. So first and foremost thing that is required is become politically aware. Know your rights. Know what rights you have. Because if you don't have the rights, how would you enforce them? Why would you approach the court when you don't even know what rights you have which cannot be violated? So become politically aware, be critical. And by critical, I do not mean only criticize. Be critical means just do not have blind faith in any person in power. Do not have blind faith in any government in power. Be critical about it in the sense that whatever they are doing good or whatever they are doing maybe not so good, or something that they need changes in, something that they need improvement in, you should be able to judge both the sides very well. It's not that just because you have allegiance to one particular party, you will blindly follow it. Or if you don't like a particular party, you will blindly criticize it. Just be a critically aware person, a politically aware person who can look at both the sides, and then let the government know what they're doing wrong so that they can make changes. That's the beauty of democracy. Yes. Okay, let me see your question. I think you asked something. Ma'am, Ma'am, after getting such knowledge about constitution, I think we have everything one side. On other side, we have Rahul, beta, I did not understand your question. Can you rephrase it? Okay. Can you rephrase your question, because your question is not clear? Maybe the language that you used is not very clear. All right. So overall, if we talk about the outcomes of democracy, democracy cannot guarantee economic growth. Democracy cannot, it takes time to eliminate, nothing can eliminate poverty completely, but democracy can work towards eliminating inequality and poverty. It cannot completely remove social conflict, because as long as people are living together, they have different ideologies, different values, different customs, there is social diversity, they will have conflicts, but democracy provides a way to peacefully resolve those conflicts, right? It creates accountability, responsive and legitimate government. Then we studied that it promotes transparency. It accommodates social diversity, as I told you. Then it protects freedom and dignity of individual. What else we studied? It also gives power to the citizen to question the government, right? Even though at least there is... Madhu, this is something you should think about first. I will answer this question, don't worry. But think about it. I told you there are so many benefits of democracy, right? And you said even though there is no dignity and freedom in dictatorship, it won't be as much as democracy. Let's not use extreme statements like there is no dignity whatsoever or there is no freedom whatsoever. Democracy provides it better. How government is going to rule long run, example, China is going to be the next powerful country. Now, this is something you should think. Think about if democracy provides dignity and let's say freedom, even though democracy provides these things, the government is not stable and the government does not run for a long run, although largely it does. And there is no economic development as such, which we have already discussed. But in countries like China, where there is, we cannot say it's a democracy, but they are developing at a much faster rate. They are becoming so powerful. Why is that so? They can be mended in own way. You mean amendment? I still don't understand. I still don't understand, Beta, what you're trying to say. You're saying that article and constitution, you have rights, you have fundamental rights, we have fundamental rights, but they can be amended. That's what you're trying to say. No, fundamental rights are the basic structure, the part of basic structure doctrine. And the basic structure doctrine cannot be amended in a way that they can't be taken away from you. Okay. Now let's move on to the questions from this chapter. First question, political equality in a democracy means, this is something we have already discussed in previous chapters. Option A, equal income for every citizen. Option B, equal ownership of property. Option C, equal voting rights. Or D, equal educational qualifications. What is the meaning of political equality? Tell me, what is the answer? Yes. What is the meaning of political equality? A, B, C or D? No, Tejpal, I did not say that this is a criteria where you should be judging democracy, because this chapter mainly talks about the fact that we can't be judging democracy based on economic equality, because democracy is mainly about social justice. Democracy is mainly about, especially Indian democracy, is about welfare society, social justice, and democracy is mainly about freedom and dignity of people. Economic growth can be slow in democracy, but we are not judging it based on that. We are judging it based on the fact that the basic idea of democracy is people should have fair opportunities, fair chances to grow in life, for education, for employment, for basic development of their overall personality and life, which is lacking right now. That's where we are judging it, because that is the main idea of democracy. If democracy is lagging behind the main idea of democracy, then of course we will judge it, right? C says equal voting rights. Yes, political equality is about equal voting rights. We have already studied this in detail earlier. Second question, with reference to democratic government, consider the following statements. First, accountability means citizens can hold the government responsible for its action. Second, responsiveness means government acts according to people's needs. And third, legitimacy means citizens accept the authority of the government. Yes, tell me which of these is, you have to tell me how many of these is or are correct. Only one statement, two statement or three statement, and then you will tell me which of them are correct as well. Which parts of Indian constitution are important for UPSC? See, the point is you cannot pinpoint for it. Of course, fundamental rights you have to study. You have to study DPSPs. You also have to study fundamental duties. You have certain chapters in Lakshmikant. For UPSC, if you're talking about, you have to go through all those chapters. They are the basics. You cannot pick and choose that I'll study only this part, because questions have been asked from every part at some point or the other. And you can also get an idea about any subject for that matter by looking at previous year questions. So maybe the same question will not be repeated, but the themes are always repeated. So you can see that from fundamental rights, every year something has been asked, or every 2 years something has been asked. So at least you can identify the themes. Yes. 3. All 3 are correct. 2 are, okay, many of you have said that all 3 are correct. Many of you have said that only 2 are correct. So you also have to tell me which 2 are correct. If you have said 3, that means all these 3 statements you're saying, right? But if you said 2 or 1, you will tell me which of these is correct. If you have said 1, then which 1? If you have said 2, then which 2 are correct? Yes. 1 and 2 are correct. The third is wrong. Okay, let's discuss. First says, accountability means citizens can hold the government responsible for its actions. That is correct. That's what the meaning of accountability, that whatever policies, laws or actions the government is taking, we can ask or we can question the government about it. So citizens can hold the government responsible for its actions. That is accountability. This is right. Second, responsiveness means government acts according to people's needs. Yes, responsiveness comes from the word responsive. And you must have used it in daily life as well. Response means, let's say you texted somebody and the person texted you back. That is response. So here also, responsiveness would mean, let's say the people have said something, okay, this is what we want, this is something we are not comfortable with, and the government responds with actions or words or whatever. That is responsiveness. So government acts according to people's needs. That is responsiveness. This is also correct. Third, legitimacy means citizens accept the authority of the government. See, what did we study in the definition of legitimacy? There we studied that legitimacy means that this is people's government. That's what we studied, that people have chosen this government. That's how the government gets legitimacy. So if people have chosen the government, this means that the government's authority will be accepted by people. See, that's what it means, right? So if I've chosen somebody as my representative, I'm going to accept the authority of that person because I have chosen them. That's what it means. Legitimacy means citizens accept the authority of the government. So that is also correct, right? So all 3 of them were correct. Okay. So I hope this session is clear to you as well. Authority, not in democratic word. That is power. There's a difference between power and authority. If you will study it in when you talk about these things in depth. Authority is legitimate power. See, power means you can make somebody do something even when they don't want to do it. That is power. It can be coercive. It can be forceful. But when we say authority, if any one of you has sociology optional, you must have read Weber's definition. When you talk about authority, authority is legitimate power. So when legitimacy is added to it, then we call it authority. Authority is not a negative word. Okay, it does not have negative connotation. All right, so that's it in this chapter. As I told you, all of these things we have already studied, so this is not very difficult for you, I'm sure. And for those of you who are new, let me reiterate it for you. We have our sessions, live sessions every day at 6 p.m. sharp from Monday to Friday. And we are covering new NCERTs right now. So I really hope that all of you join me at 6:30 every day from Monday to Friday. And we will start with geography very soon. We are done with at least some basic part of polity. So we'll start with geography. Yes, positive or negative connotation, right? Point 3. Point 3 is legitimacy means citizens accept the authority of the government. Okay. Now you tell me, if you choose somebody, would you not accept them? Yes, you would accept them, right? So in legitimacy, what did we study? Legitimacy means that we have chosen our representative. It is people's government. Right, that's what legitimacy is. Because we have chosen them, it is lawful. The government gets legitimacy because we have chosen them. That is legitimacy. And if I have chosen a government, I will accept the authority of that government. Authority here does not mean negative. Authority here does not mean blind power. This simply means that power that has gained a legitimate position because they have followed laws or they have followed proper procedure. So legitimacy means citizens accept the authority of the government. Why? Because the citizens themselves have chosen the government. So I hope it is clear now. So because in the last class you did not answer mains answer writing question, the practice question that I gave you, I'm not giving you another question here. And maybe I'll see it in 1 or 2 more sessions. If you keep doing this, then I'll stop bringing mains practice questions. Okay, and yes, we will start with geography very soon. As I told you, we have some basics done in polity. We also have to start with geography, so we are going to start that very soon. So that's it for today's session. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll see you every day from Monday to Friday at 6:30 sharp. Don't be late, otherwise you'll miss some of these sessions. So until next time, take care.